Not that long before the release of the next generation version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, CD Projekt RED did confirm over on Twitter that there would be a physical copy of this next generation version, but it would release at a later date. And we are now pretty much 2 months past the release of this Witcher 3 Wild Hunt next generation version, and it looks like this physical copy is releasing very soon for both PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. So in today's video, we're going to go through everything we know about this physical edition of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for the next generation consoles. But just before we do get into all of that, I want to let you guys know about another channel that I run. This channel covers everything related to Rockstar games, including the Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto series. A link to that channel is in the description if you're interested in checking out some content like that. So please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any content just like this related to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and Cyberpunk 2077. So let's get into the video. After the releases of the two major DLCs for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in 2016, that being Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, we got a Game of the Year edition of the game, and this made sense to fans since obviously the game did win Game of the Year, so to get this edition made sense. And this edition didn't really add anything new, but it was a complete edition of the game. It's basically just another wording for the complete edition. So obviously this came with the base game and the two major DLCs that released later down the line. And this Game of the Year edition essentially replaced the standard version of the game when it came to buying a physical copy. You could still get the standard version of game on online stores. However, if you wanted to purchase a physical copy of the game with a disc, once that Game of the Year edition had released, that was really your only option, unless of course there is some small stock left of the standard version. But generally speaking, if you wanted to purchase a physical copy of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, then you would have to purchase the Game of the Year edition. And until about 2020, the whole Witcher 3 Wild Hunt side of things died down, and obviously it seemed like the game was in a sense complete. Since that Game of the Year edition had released, that was a complete edition of the game, and then yeah, there was no other DLC releasing for the game since that was essentially it. But then we did actually get another version of the game for the Nintendo Switch. Now when it came to the physical editions of the Nintendo Switch version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, it was actually a little bit different. There was a standard version, which would obviously come with the standard cartridge, and it wouldn't include the DLCs, but it would include the base game. And then there was a complete edition of the game, which, well, yeah, it had the two major DLCs and the base game along with that. And those were the two different physical copies that you could get. Now, obviously, one of the major differences there is that there was no Game of the Year edition. It just went straight to a complete edition. And at the time, it seemed like that would really be it for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in terms of any sort of release, really. Now, to this day, all of these physical copies are still available for purchase. You could purchase the Game of the Year edition of the game on Xbox One or on PlayStation 4, or you could get the complete edition or standard edition on Nintendo Switch. Now, in terms of what these physical copies would actually include, obviously you'd really just get the disc, that was just about it, and of course the case for the disc, but obviously within that disc you would get the DLCs along with the base game, which is obviously, yeah, it's a complete edition of the game like I mentioned before. But this does all bring us on to the next generation version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. About 2 months ago, at the end of 2022, the next generation version of the game did release, and this was a free upgrade of the game. So this did mean that if you owned the PlayStation 4 version of the game or the Xbox One version of the game, then you would get a free upgrade to that next generation version, providing that you had a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X and S. So this does actually mean that if you owned the Game of the Year edition, the physical version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on, say, PlayStation 4, then you would be able to get the PlayStation 5 version for free, even though you have it on disc. So this does mean that if today you went and purchased the PlayStation 4 version of the game on disc and then put that into a PlayStation 5, you'd be able to get the PlayStation 5 version for completely free. So technically you could actually get the next generation version for cheaper if you wanted to get the disc version by getting the PlayStation 4 version of the game, since you get a free upgrade. But obviously if you want to have the actual PS5 case and disc, then you're going to want to purchase that new version. We actually do see something similar with Cyberpunk 2077. There isn't actually a physical copy of the next generation version of Cyberpunk 2077, but there is a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One physical copy, and if you put that disc into a next generation console, then you would get the upgrade to the next generation version for completely free. However, there have been many rumors that Cyberpunk 2077 will be getting a Game of the Year edition, including a physical release for the next generation consoles, and I've actually done a video going over all of that, and I'll link that video in the description below if you're interested in checking that out. So obviously, like I mentioned at the start of the video, CD Projekt RED have confirmed that there will be a next generation physical edition of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. When CD Projekt RED did mention this, we didn't actually get any sort of release date or time frame really. We just knew that it was going to release sometime after the release of the next generation version. And well, it looks like this is actually coming very soon. If you go on over to Amazon, you can actually find the listings for the next generation physical copies of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for both the Xbox Series consoles and PlayStation 5. And to put this into perspective, I was literally just scrolling through Amazon one day and I thought, you know what, let's see how much the actual Game of the Year edition of the game for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One actually costs these days, since obviously that's been out for a long time now. was interested to see how cheap that was. And when I searched it up, The Witcher 3, it actually just came up with the next generation versions that I could purchase. I was actually insanely surprised, and I went over to Twitter to see if CD Projekt RED had mentioned anything on this, and they haven't. They've literally said nothing about this. But if you go over to Amazon, you can actually see the public listings for both of them, and it does even have a release date. The release date that is listed on the Amazon page is the 26th of January 2023. So yeah, obviously at this point we're literally a matter of days away, to be honest, and we'll be getting this very shortly. And in terms of pricing, when I went on there the first time, both of them were going for £30 or $30. However, the PS5 version was on a slight discount and it was going for £26. Unfortunately though, upon going back to the store to make this video, both of the physical versions for both platforms are now currently unavailable. So I don't really know what happened there, unless they've maybe gone out of stock or something like that. And it does say that they don't know when the item, if or will it will be back in stock, but I'm sure it will be at some point. But yeah, I'm not sure if it is just it's completely out of stock, or that they've accidentally put it up and now they've removed it. But it was up for quite a while, so I find it a bit odd if they accidentally did it and only just managed to get it down. But either way, there is a listing on Amazon for both platforms, that being PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, of course. And yeah, in general, the listing looks pretty identical, to be honest, to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of the Game of the Year versions, that being, since the Complete Edition and the Game of the Year editions are the exact same. The only difference is obviously the design on the physical version. We do actually have images for the physical versions, and I'm going to put them on the screen now, so you can see the PlayStation 5 on the left, and you can see the Xbox Series X and S version on the right. Obviously, they both look pretty similar, apart from the top of them being different, since they are for different platforms. Now, sadly, we don't have an image of the other side of the case, and there is no images on that anywhere, apart from, well, from what I can find anyway. I can't find images anywhere for the other side, and generally this is the only place I can actually find a listing for this, that being Amazon, of course, and I can't really find this anywhere else. So yeah, that is all we have in terms of other images that they've put in the listing. Is literally just screenshots from the game. Now, the only real difference in the physical versions between the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 and then the Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S is obviously that it's a complete edition instead of a Game of the Year edition, and in the top right you can see still on the screen that it does say Netflix DLC that's included, instead of, obviously, that wasn't on the Game of the Year editions for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So that's one of the major differences there, and one of the only differences, really. And lastly, of course, Geralt does look a little bit different, since they did redesign the main artwork for the game with this next generation update. And in terms of the description on the Amazon listing, it's all just generally just talking about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt itself, not really about this being a next generation version. The only difference is that it does mention that there is the Netflix DLC included. And of course, it does say the release date, which is the 26th of January 2023, and it says that just in the product details. So that is pretty much everything we know about this physical version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for the next generation consoles. So we do have a release date by the looks of it, which is the 26th of January 2023, but obviously this hasn't been confirmed by CD Projekt RED really in any way, other than this being on Amazon, so that could easily change. However, I think that, you know, there's a very good chance that it will release then. And then obviously, like we mentioned earlier, in terms of the price, it looks like this will be £30 or $30, but I would expect sales to come very, very quickly. And obviously, if you looked onto the used market, you could get this much cheaper as well. As the final thing I want to talk about is that I am going to give away one of these physical versions for completely free by being a subscriber on the channel by the 26th of January 2023, or of course whenever this does actually release. You'll automatically be entered into a giveaway to win this next generation physical version of the game on a platform of your choice. All you have to be is a subscriber on the channel by the time it does release, and I'll be announcing this giveaway in a video, and I'll be doing many community posts on it to keep you all updated as well. So obviously that giveaway is a bit of a win-win. You get a chance to win this for completely free, and obviously I gain a subscriber, which is obviously, but yeah, that's pretty cool. But that does just about wrap up things here. That's everything we know about this next generation physical version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. If you did enjoy this video or find it helpful in any way, then please consider subscribing and liking and turning on that notification bell so you don't miss any content just like this. And just a reminder about my other channel, and a link to that channel is in the description below, along with the link to see the Game of the Year version rumors about Cyberpunk 2077. I made a video on that, and a link to that is in the description too. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.